Welcome to Artcasters. This is episode 375. Tonight we've got Jason Copland with us, who is the author and illustrator of Full Tilt, which we'll talk about in a minute. And he's got a full-on crowdfunding campaign going right now on Zoop. And so the link for that is in the description of this video. Go ahead and check that out quickly, actually, because if you're not watching this live, then it's is that tomorrow that it ends?
Yeah, it ends. Thursday at midnight.
Thursday at midnight. All right, cool. Okay, so before we get to Jason, you know who I am, unless you don't. And if you don't, I'm Corey Kerr, and you can find my stuff at coreykerr.com. You can jump on the email newsletter by going to /email or hit the merch on the store with much of the stuff I'm doing there at /store. Or just go to the homepage. It's all there too. And Scott, where can we find your stuff?
You can find my stuff at circworks.com. That's the website where I have digital tools for making comics, as well as my own comics, including Young and the Dead, which is my kids versus zombie adventure story. If you're into like 80s kid adventure stuff like Goonies, Monster Squad, Explorers, all that stuff, then you'll probably dig it because it's kind of like that, but with zombies. And I have a YouTube channel, which if you go back through the archives, there's tons of videos on making comics and, sort of making a career out of comics and things like that, kind of untraditionally. You can find all that stuff, including my series Making Comics 101, which basically takes you through every step. But I've got a date. Did I mention? I can't remember if I didn't mention this last time, but June 20th is when I will be relaunching my YouTube channel. It will be all new, all different. So stick around for that because I'm pretty excited with the stuff that I'm going to be putting out there. So just be aware of that.
Cool. That's awesome. And Josh, where can we find your stuff?
I'm Joshua Kimball. If you haven't yet, you should make sure you're subscribed to me on YouTube as Joshua Kimball. Become part of the Kremlin, which is what I call the followers of my live stream and vlog. And then also, if you are into indie comics, consider picking up Jacob's Apartment, which is a slice of life graphic novel about two roommates that are polar opposites that have different philosophies on life, who are in their early 20s and kind of trying to figure out who they are. Jacob, the main character, is thrown for a loop when his father's diagnosed with cancer and starts kind of questioning his faith and belief and identity. And Sarah, in the meantime, is kind of reeling from a past relationship. Both of them are having these strange dreams. Like Jacob dreams of himself as this strange stuffed animal he had as a kid. And as they're being plagued by these strange dreams and trying to find their identity, as dreams and reality start interweaving in what I'd call like Eternal Sunshine for the Spotless Mind meets Ghost World, put it in a blender. If you like that flavor, you'd like Jacob's Apartment, make sure you pick it up. And then there's another graphic novel, Two Stories, which is autobiographical indie comic goodness in the vein of Raw. And that's called Two Stories. So both are available at bookstores, online, everywhere. So.
Cool. And Jason, why don't you tell us just quick intro and where we can find your Full Tilt campaign?
Well, it's currently on zoop.gg. It would be one of the ones that's on the main page. It ends in like 28 hours.
Wow.
So if you're not if you're not live, you're probably not going to get there. So it's doing okay. I'm very pleased, actually.
Yeah, it's going great.
Very nice. Yeah.
No, the support and the turnout has been fantastic, and I can't thank people enough for supporting the book and myself.
Yeah, it's been fun to watch. So I think I came across you during your Kill All Monsters time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's been fun to watch you kind of get into mainstream publishing and then kind of do your own thing. And so you've been working on this one for 5 years. Is that right?
5 years. Yeah. I stutter as I say that. 5 years. Yeah, actually, it's probably actually been longer. I was talking to my wife and I was starting to go through some of the old Facebook posts, how they do the memories thing. And there was one for 5 years ago, and it was talking about me organizing the script into panels and stuff. So I had actually started working on it before that. So the timeline, I can barely remember last week. So the idea of thinking of like 6 years ago or 5.5 years ago, that forget it, it's all gone. But generally 5 years, I would say 5 plus, but I don't know what the plus is.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're going to talk, and we'll just kind of do this kind of loosely, but for everybody in the chat, I'm kind of curious on if you guys want to throw out your artistic inspirations, and we're going to kind of talk about ours. And as we see them kind of come through in the chat, we'll call those out kind of in between when we're talking. And so let me see. I want to see if I just thought of a better way to do this. I'm going to do it this way. But yeah, so we've got these that are going to like kind of awkwardly be on top of our faces, I think is the best way to do that. So Jason sent me some stuff like ahead of time. Do you want these in any particular order or?
Not really. This is actually probably one, like I think I sent the other,
oh, that's
I'll say it out loud. I don't want to spoil what's coming. I think I sent the other ones first, but this was actually probably one of the very first comics that was like, yeah, I need to know about what's going on. Cause I was a big Star Wars fan, or I still am, I guess, as a kid. And when I saw this, I was like, oh, I need to know more. And so this is Walt Simonson. And he did a run of Star Wars comics, mostly inked by Tom Palmer. This is actually from an artist edition that I have that is all Walt Simonson Star Wars stuff. And there's some really cool things. There's another one that I sent you that's a double page. So it's one of the very first double page spreads that I was ever like, holy crap. Well, that's Ronan.
Let me flip through and see.
That one
is
there.
That one?
Yeah. So that was one of the very first two-page spreads that I ever remember seeing. And I was just like, oh, this is fantastic. And I think that's what probably, put the little seed in my head that 2 pages are the way to go. Because my book, Full Tilt, is full of them. I have so many 2 pagers in Full Tilt. So, but yeah, this played on everything that young Jason was digging at the time, Star Wars and really cool line art. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love looking at the inks. That's kind of my thing. Is I love, like, I'll show some today, but I've got originals and like the inks and stuff. It's like when you add hue and saturation, it kind of muddies things up a little bit, I think. And I just really like black and white. I think a lot of artists, at least a lot of comic book illustrators, are kind of purists for like inks, but like the way that they're defining the form in this with the highlight and shadow, really crisp. I mean, it looks mechanical. It's great. I love that. It's a great spread.
Yeah, that's the nice thing about having the artist editions is that you're essentially getting exactly like the boards. If you can't afford the $200,000 or whatever to buy all the boards for the comic, these books are fantastic because you can just like zero right in on how things were put down. It's pretty mind blowing. The peaks that you get into the process are invaluable.
Yeah, I always like the fact that you can see where they applied like pro white or white out, or like, where they did paste up or they swapped out like a face or something. It's kind of fun. And then you see disgusting artist editions. Like I'm blanking out now. From Hell, not From Hell. My goodness. Black Hole, Charles Burns. Like, and if you look at Charles Burns, it's just like there's like no anything. It's just it's just impossibly perfect. He didn't white anything out. Anyhow, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely fun to look at those. I get a lot of encouragement from them too, because it kind of humanizes the process where you're like, okay, I could do that,
Yeah, because Al Williams, Scott, you mentioned Al Williamson.
Yeah, at first I thought it was Al Williamson because his early Star Wars stuff, but the Simonson stuff's great too. I always think I always go to Thor when I think of Simonson, but
yeah, I've got so many. Like, I actually didn't realize how many Simonson artist editions I have. I was looking through them all to try to look for stuff to photograph, and I was like, oh, I've got this one. Oh, I've got this one too. But I actually have the Al Williamson Star Wars. He did all of the Empire Strikes Back, and that is like a artist edition of all of the Empire Strikes Back pages. And going to what Joshua said, there is almost not a lick of whiteout on any of it, and it blows my mind because he's doing likenesses of all of these people, and he's doing like R2D2 and C3PO, all super mechanical and super technical, and almost not a lick of whiteout in like I don't know, 185 pages or something. Like,
yeah, you wonder if he uses like a light table or something. I don't know. I'm not sure.
Probably, but
curious.
still, like like if I tried to light table any of that, I'd still be whiting out stuff.
True.
Yeah, I feel like maybe the past him was like, in some future age, there will be an artist edition, and I will make artists jealous.
Okay, I've got a pretty obvious one since I've done several videos on this one. So let me switch over here.
Yeah, that's my favorite, probably my favorite comic book artist of all time.
Yeah. So Arthur Adams, and if anybody's interested in doing like a deep dive of this shoulder right here, I have a video that kind of breaks that down. But let me see if I can get this closer. I mean, the way that the inks are able to, like, I'll just do this really quick, but like right along here, or if we do like the forearm, you're seeing the cylinder. So all the highlights get darker as they wrap around the cylinder, but then you're seeing the ripples in between each muscle because he's shading each one. So there's actually like about 8 different levels of value that he's able to get just by doing that. Anyway, blows me away every time I see one of his things. I always try to look at like how he's getting across like the different materials and surfaces and stuff.
And in contrast to the rocks and the smoke, everything has it. That's the thing. I mean, some people you just see, and there's a lot of like 90s image stuff where you kind of see where things are all kind of textured the same. They don't, there's no differentiation between the textures on things.
Yeah. And literally like the surfaces, every single one of them has like a different technique that makes it feel like, yeah, I could see how that would be leather, or that would be rock, or that would be scales. Yeah, it's incredible. So that's a big one for me is kind of any really intense ink work where you get multiple levels of value out of just black and white. Like ink washes are cool. I think they're cool, but I really like when it's just black and white and you're still able to kind of pull out value out of that. In case anybody's wondering, if you can get a copy of this book.
Yeah, I was wondering what that was because I looked at the stuff on the opposite side and I wasn't sure. Image treasure. Oh.
Yeah, so I bought this from Ryan Otley. And it is just, let's see if there's a table of contents. I don't think there's a table of contents, but it is just a bunch of different people. Oh, here we go. Here's table of contents. So you got Bruce Timm, Adam Warren. Arthur Adams doesn't do comics in this, but he put in some pinups. Thomas Scully, Ryan Otley, Eric Larson, Andy Kuhn. And so it's just got a bunch of different comics in it that really I think have only been published here, and it's huge too.
Wow, that's cool.
Anyway, but I think you can only get it from one of the guys that's in it. But anyway, yeah, this isn't Arthur Adams, but he's another guy that I like quite a bit. Cool. Josh or Scott, do you guys have Do you guys have one?
We're just sharing influences, right?
Yeah, and you can either talk about them or show them.
Okay.
Or both.
Or both. Yeah, if you show them, it'd be kind of awkward if we just sat here and started.
Do you have any, Josh? I've got some if you don't have any, but
well, I've got one I can just
go
mention that I bring up every time. I didn't have time to like grab any examples or whatever, but Chris Ware is probably the most influential artist on me. That's not like one of the early influences, but later on, like when I started taking cartooning really seriously, I picked up couple of Acme Novelty Library books, which is like his self-published book that like was distributed through Fantagraphics, and it was just seeing comics executed in a way that I'd never seen approached before. Where he had a couple pages in Jimmy Corrigan, The Smartest Kid on Earth, where you're reading the comic and you literally have to rotate the book like 360 degrees as you read it, and it just happens fluidly. Like you're not confused. It's just like you're just kind of following, and you find yourself rotating the book. Like he has just a level of control and just intelligence, and probably the most intelligent panel decisions and paneling decisions and kind of meta decisions that I've seen in comics. So for me, like Chris Ware would be like number one biggest influence, because I think I personally am biased, but I think he's the best living cartoonist. So, but yeah, that guy, I never have a time where I pick up a book by him. Like Rusty Brown just came out this last year, and I never have a time where I'm looking at Chris Ware's work and it doesn't somehow influence my choices and like paneling and pacing and stuff like that. So I really like his work, and then it also doesn't hurt that he's also like one of the best letterers around, and also like hand letterers, and also his color choices are these really subtle but brilliant kind of flat colors and stuff. So yeah, Chris Ware, not a big surprise for anybody who follows the stream. Yeah. But yeah, and also that's all hand done, which to me I love. I love.
And you'll notice that this
hand.
bee also ended up in Jacob's apartment. So that bee there.
Is that the same bee?
No.
He flew into Jacob's apartment.
Okay.
I smell copyright infringement.
Scott, what do you got?
Okay, let me see if I can do this. Hold on, because I've got just all right. Cintiq. Yeah. All right. So I do a number of different things, and I'm all, it's not just comics. One of the things I do are prints and everything. It's been a while since I've done one actually, but I'm a big fan of like mechs and things like that. So this is Tom Whalen, who's a poster artist, and I love so much about his work, and he does stuff other than mechs, but I just picked this up to kind of compare to kind of some of the stuff that I'm doing. But I love his limited color palettes. I love the choices of colors that he picks. And I think another thing that's important is when you take inspiration, that you take a number of different inspirations and you kind of add your own thing and everything. So I'll kind of compare. So obviously I don't look at this and like, oh, I want to duplicate everything he does. I like this one doesn't have as much as far as typography. There's some, but as far as you can see, all this stuff is very solid. There's really no line art to it. So when I do some of my mech stuff, I'll show you. So these are some of mine where I kind of do the same thing where I borrow a limited color palette, and sometimes I'm guilty of just taking one of his prints and sampling colors from it directly, just because I like it so much. But I do some different things, whereas mine has line art to it. Mine has I usually like to integrate like the white outline, and that I kind of borrowed from I just remember the old stickers from like the Star Wars stickers, where they always had around the die cuts, they always had that white thing that kind of popped things out. So I usually throw white outlines around my stuff. And then I usually also add some texture to it, to the backgrounds. But so that's kind of where I where I take inspiration from. As far as comics, even though I started drawing Young and the Dead before I discovered this particular artist, I really like, this is Guru Huru, which is actually, I think it's like a studio of a couple artists. But the thing I like about their stuff is they do kids really well. And since most of my comics have kids as the protagonist, I find more like, again, I started drawing mine before I discovered these artists, but now I'm kind of like, oh, I love the expressions that they use. I love it. Just, so I tend to kind of, when I need inspiration, like, okay, if a character's kind of upset or down or like excited or whatever, kind of, what is this artist doing? So I always kind of refer to some of this stuff. So these are a little more recent artists, of course, like some of the examples we've seen. My inspiration goes way back, and it's kind of, Corey kind of told me this last minute to pick a few out. So that's what I did. And then, and not that I'm anywhere near that level, but these are some of my kind of kid characters and everything. So, but yeah, I mean, I've got so many different inspirations, and now with what I'm moving into now, where it's more, I'm taking a lot of inspiration from old comic book ads and things like that. So I usually go through cycles of different things that I create, and then I kind of dive into what inspires me at the time. But there's so many that, and the ones that I mentioned aren't they're not like my favorite artists, but they're the most that I can see. I mean, they're the ones that I can see coming into these two particular styles that I deal with. So that's me. I'll switch back to full screen.
That's cool. I like that stuff. All right. I can't really see the thumbnails here, Jason, so I'm just going to randomly pick the next one. How's that one? You want to talk about that one?
Yeah, that's from Ronin. That's Frank Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I think I gave you, maybe three from Ronin. That's a big one for me, Ronin, as a book. Yeah, it's pretty massive, and just the scale, it's just something about it that I find really really exciting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Let me see if I can flip through and find any others here.
So this is like this 2-pager, and then the next 2-pager where it has like pretty much all black. This is the kind of the storytelling that just like that I just love, is that these the panels along the bottom and all the hands and stuff coming in, and just the pacing. And then the next one where the hands creep into her face in the lower panels and stuff, and then all goes black. It's just it's like 4 pages of just like fantastic storytelling.
Yeah. For some reason, I don't have the other ones. I'll see if I can pull it up a little bit later.
Yeah, when I sent them to you, they turned them into pings, and like,
yeah,
they wouldn't paste the way the other ones would, which was just kind of weird, because I took them all the same way. So
yeah, well, we'll see.
Anyway,
if we can,
yeah. But yeah, so that's really the book that there's this Walt Simonson stuff and the Herb Trimpe stuff that as a young kid, when I was going to the corner store and picking up comics, those are the comics that were like that got me excited, but not really to make my own, just excited about comics in general. But it wasn't until I saw Ronin where I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. Yeah, the coloring definitely sends it into a different realm. And I like both equally. I love the coloring, but I also love looking at just the sheer black and white stuff. But I think you're coming up to it, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the artist, the gallery edition that I have of Ronin, that one scene where it's like news footage or not news footage, but just footage of the demon coming to get him. It's all done in they've got these acetate overlays inside the book, which are just like super cool.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things. I've been wanting to pick up the Daniel Klaus artist's edition book for that very reason, because he used a ton of like acetate overlays to do color.
Yeah.
And so it's like you get to see all that fun, like cool, like acetate work they used to do, you know?
Yeah. So far, I'm 2 for 3 in having the books that you guys are talking about.
Yeah.
We'll see how long we'll see how long I can hold that up.
Yeah. And those pages there where all the lights in Aquarius got shut down and then they're coming back, and he uses, and so he's like blacking out in the artist edition. You can see the real drawing, and then he's taking photocopies and he's like inking over the photocopies, the blackout stuff.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's the kind of the sneak peeks behind the curtain that are really cool about books like that.
That's awesome. Yeah, he's so like confident with, his blacks for sure.
Oh, look, there's that one we were just looking at.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, he's not afraid to sling the black around, that's for sure. And I think that's one of the things that I really loved about this was that, in comics on the stands and stuff when I was buying them, there was nothing like this. That this was like a smack in the face. Was like, what the hell is this?
Yeah,
and I knew that I liked it, but I wouldn't have been able to tell you what I liked about it. It was just different, I guess. And look at the fold out at the end. Like that's what I would have loved to have been able to do in Full Tilt, is have a gatefold, but unfortunately it's not going to happen. But but man, that would be fantastic.
But
especially if it was as long as the one you showed us on the last appearance. The gate folded out and it goes across the room.
It just keeps going. If you back at a certain level, you can get a print of that, right?
Well, yeah. So it's not at a level you actually have to just ask the Zoop guys to like quote you a price. I haven't got a straight answer as to what it is, because I want one. Yeah, and so they're going to look into it, they say, and I'll find out how much it costs. But we're talking about a couple $100 probably. So it's not really for anyone but me.
Yeah. Well, for people who can't remember from when we talked to you a while ago, how many pages is that one continuous spread?
It's 22 pages. I actually just posted a video of me going along. It's on all my socials. That's I laid it all out, all 22 pages. I laid it all out on my floor in my living room / kitchen area, and then I walked with my phone and I tried to film it as careful as I could, but it's a little bumpy because there's not a lot of room as I'm walking along, but I show all 22 in the video. Where,
all right, let me see if I can pull that up here. I've got it here. So
unfortunately, you can hear the floor creaking. we've got wood paneling floors, and they were just like crack. So yeah,
all
maybe
right,
mute it if you play it.
yeah. Okay, so we'll go here and then here, and then let's jump back over. So this is all one continuous, and it's hand drawn on paper.
Yeah, so that's the beginning.
Oh wow.
So
and I think that's a good example to show us like right after Miller too, because you can instantly see a lot of the influence with your choices of black and your arrangement of that. Like, it's definitely got like Miller influences on it, Like not a direct bite, but just the way you're making those inks like flow into each other,
It's the best way to be influenced, right? I mean, there's nobody would look at that and say, "Oh, you're totally copying it," but like you can see, how it's been some of the ingredients in your mix.
That is so cool. I forgot you were saying that everything, the whole thing connects like that.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
Wow.
That also looks super playful to make. Like, it's like we get so stuck sometimes in like the delivery of books. It's kind of fun to see something like that where you're intentionally kind of playing, as you're doing it in like a very serious way, but it's neat to see.
Yeah, actually, Jason, you and I had a brief exchange. I was talking about Esoteric Crumble Flux and how I kind of have slowed down because I was in the habit of making, an image or two a day. And now I'm spending like a week on one of these. And you said that you had slowed down kind of your production for this as well.
Yeah.
And it shows, man. I mean, this is it's just freaking amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were you going to say? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
Oh, I have no idea. I think it's just that because I had no schedule, I was on my own time. I could slow it down and spend as much time as I wanted to. So that's one of the reasons why it kind of happened like that, was that, and what Josh was saying was playful. It was actually kind of turned into a game for me.
Mm-hmm.
The first 2-pager. And then I was like, oh, well, maybe that'd be cool if I just continued, that chase over to the next one. And so I stuck them together and I just did it as like one big thing. And then I was like, oh, I wonder if I could continue to, move it along. And so it just kind of became a game, and something to keep me interested, because I was at that point where I was like, it's time to shake it up a little maybe. And so that was that was how I kept myself entertained. And then I hit that last 2-pager with the big building and the smoke in the distance. And I was like, okay, that seemed like a natural spot to stop and go back into the single pages. Although that didn't last long. I think it was 2 single pages and then I went to another 2 pages. But yeah. So yeah, you can, as you can probably tell, the Ronin and the Miller influences there are pretty heavy. But like Josh was saying, I believe I've made up my own. I don't think.
Oh yeah.
People will get it, but then be like, oh, but it's not. I'm not an ape or anything.
Oh yeah. Draw like you, not like that.
Exactly.
Sure. Yeah, that's awesome.
Is it cheating if I say Eisner?
No,
right.
Never. Come on.
Okay. So, but I'm going to go for a deep cut here. So I have several of the original preventative monthly. Oh, I got to move this down. Preventative monthly maintenance comics that he did for the military.
Where did you get those, Corey, and how long ago? And are they still can you find them?
Okay, so where did I get them? I was in, this is a weird story. So I was in we rented an Airbnb in the middle of the desert in southern Utah, in this town where they tried to live kind of like a socialist utopia situation. So it was like, it's called Orderville.
Oh, okay.
And anyway, so it was some Mormon settlers that were like, hey, let's not do capitalism. And so they set up.
I was worried you were going to be like, it's a couple years ago in Seattle. I was at this place.
Yeah, right. No, so it was a long time ago, but Orderville is based off of what they called the United Order, which is this. Anyway, so it is horrifically ugly and almost uninhabitable. And so Airbnbs are really cheap there, because why would you be there? And so when we get my whole extended family together, we try to find these places because we don't care about where we are. We just want to get together, but there's like 30 plus of us now. And so we rented this giant thing in the middle of the desert, and there was this really weird rundown, like you couldn't even tell if it was open or had been condemned 10 years ago, kind of pawn shop. And I walked into the pawn shop just because I like looking at weird old stuff. And I didn't know about preventative maintenance monthly at all. But I looked at the covers of these and I was like, oh, that looks like Eisner. And then my wife was like, well, that's what it says at the bottom. It says Eisner. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I grabbed them. So anyway, so that's the long kind of boring story of where they came from. I don't know if they're worth anything or not, but I don't care because I don't collect stuff to make money off of it. But anyway, so these are great. And what I love about it is that he does all this stuff to try to make like military maintenance interesting. And so he like goes through and just like the acting that he's doing with like the different characters. And he has He's always got kind of like buxom girls in there, like, talking about, why you should do different things. Anyway, kind of fun. But then I'll throw in, because this is a little bit better known, Contract with God trilogy. And just the line work and control that he's got with like highlights and shadows, like very much in kind of the same vein as like Mike Mignola, but with a little bit more of like an early 1900s cartoony vibe instead of like angular line work. Anyway, so yeah, just another really interesting kind of influence on stuff. So I mean, I don't know if any of this comes through like obviously in the stuff that I do, but like Eisner, Art Adams, Mignola, and like Dr. Seuss, I think are like some big ones for me. And so there's some. I kind of feel like it's cheating to do Will Eisner, because who isn't inspired by Eisner? And if you haven't read any of his stuff, like you need to go read some of his stuff. Like the guy was like a master at everything. Anyway,
he also had some really cool stuff to say about the state of comics. He was kind of advocating for a lot of things that have happened since, like comics and bookstores, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Widely kind of known to be probably the guy who invented the term for graphic novel itself, because he had a big push for comics to be kind of like legitimized as a legitimate art form and not like a disposable kids thing. Anyway, and
a bit of a segue.
Nice.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's cool.
Did you guys ever read this book?
No, I didn't know that existed.
I haven't read it, but the guys over at Comic or Cartoonist Kayfabe kind of went through it and kind of did a review of it and everything. So
yeah, it's pretty fascinating. Some of it's a little, it's two friends that get together, and sometimes you're like, yeah, okay, I could live without this. But there are some back and forth about art form and that sort of thing. I think Miller was really afraid to piss him off, so he tiptoed around. He tiptoed around a few things sometimes, but it's a pretty entertaining read.
Yeah, that's cool. Does anybody have another one, or should we jump back to Jason? Or
I can hop in on another, but it sounds like Scott might. Scott,
no, I don't.
Let's see if I have it on my shelf, Josh.
Okay, I don't know if you have this one. This was one of the most influential people on me when I was like getting really into mainstream comics. Wizard Magazine had this weird highlight of this indie black and white self-published cartoonist, and it was some of the most beautiful line art I've ever seen that had just perfect thicks and thins. And so I remember looking for this book at like the local comic shop. They didn't have it. So I had to drive like 4 hours. Like my family, when we were on a vacation, I would just stop at different comic shops seeing if they had this comic. And finally, I came across Cartoon Books, graphic novel collection of Bone, #1. And then every year I would buy the next Cartoon Books Bone book that like no one I knew had heard of. and that went on to become one of the most like famous comics of our time, which is Bone by Jeff Smith. That was hugely influential on me in multiple ways. One was just like perfect thicks and thins of lines. The second was pacing. Again, like there's a bit in that actually sold me on the comic, which is winter comes fast. It's a gag where the main character Phone Bone is he is like heading into this woodsy area that he's never been to before, and this like squirrel, I think, or no, sorry, I think it might be Ted the Bug. I can't remember which character, but one of the characters warns him like, hey, you might want to find some shelter because winter comes fast. And then the next sequence is just a giant tube of just snow just falling in like 2 panels, and the timing and the humor but it's also like a really meaningful comic. And for me, it was huge because that was one of the comics that turned me on to the fact that there's better comics out there that that are indie. Like that book got me into indie comics, and so that was a hugely influential one, because I think at that point I was collecting Spider-Man and getting into the Image stuff, and then suddenly I saw this and was like, "What is this? Like, this is insane!" And that kind of opened a portal to like looking out at alternatives and stuff like that. But I still look at that to this day for just layout, pacing, staging, and line weight. Yeah.
I like how
Very
you
cool.
thought I didn't have it. I actually thought my daughter was reading it right now, but I think she put it back on my shelf. So
Nice.
Scott, you got another one, or
No, I mean, there's so many.
there's a ton. I
Yeah.
gave everybody like 30 minutes, so there's like
Yeah. I'm just off the top of my heading, Scott. So
Yeah, well, I mean, again, like Corey brought up Art Adams already. Big fan of Art Adams. Before Art Adams, I think somebody who really inspired him, and a number of other people. Michael Golden. I love his stuff, and I think you can kind of see, like, that kind of cartooniness fused into that. Even I would assume. If you look at some of Todd McFarlane's stuff, I think he was probably influenced by Golden too, because he's got some humorous, like, kind of, character faces and things worked into some of his stuff.
particularly like his cops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, Michael Golden's a big one. His Micronaut stuff is great. The Nom, I started collecting that. That's when I first discovered his stuff. Just great. I mean, it's that book's really cool because it's obviously it's about Vietnam. It's a very serious kind of subject and title, but his characters, there's just so much, even like, and I guess that probably goes back to the Will Eisner stuff. You look at a lot of that Will Eisner stuff, there's a lot of just expression in their faces and everything like that. And you can pick any one of those characters from like the Nom and they look like real people. I mean, exaggerated, of course, but there's none of that same face syndrome or anything like that I'm guilty of all the time, or even like that last example I showed of. Definitely you get some same face syndrome. Not that that's always a bad thing, because obviously I'm inspired by some of that stuff too, but the people that can really capture just a look of a person and have them, this is definitely this individual person. So Michael Golden's a big one.
Nice.
You go back to like I mean, Watterson is a big influence of mine.
I'm glad you bring up Watterson, because that's probably one of my earliest influences.
Yeah. I could talk about Watterson for a long time. That dude is amazing. And I don't have any of his stuff in here.
Watterson's the reason I found out about Crazy Cat. And so I got to credit Watterson for a lot, because George Harriman and Crazy Cat are so influential on me. I got a freaking tattoo of Ignatz and Crazy Cat on my arm, just to remind me to cartoon all the time. But it's like that crazy panel layout, the outside of the box panel layouts that he would do in newspapers, not Harriman, but although obviously Harriman too, but Watterson's just layouts, like every Sunday, I was excited to get a newspaper just to see what he was going to do. And then also the Scholastic connection there, where you used to, I don't know, I remember we'd get those order catalogs, and I remember getting the Lazy Sunday book and being like, oh man, and just pouring through it. Like the way he drew dinosaurs as a kid was like one of the coolest things you'd ever see. Those Spaceman Spiff ones. Mm-hmm. It's just incredible. And he'd do like watercolors and just be really outside of the box. It's nice and loose, but still just tight, beautiful cartooning. Yeah, that was hugely influential. Yeah.
Having not been familiar when I started reading Calvin and Hobbes, not been familiar with Harriman or like Winsor McKay or any of those guys that really they broke the boundaries of what you could do, or created a lot of what you can do in comic strips. But by that time, there wasn't anything like that anymore. So it was just basically kind of straight panels that you could reorganize real easily, and not having seen any of that stuff. I mean, when I saw Watterson, it was like, well, you can do this in the pages of a newspaper. I mean, because he was doing panel layouts and things that you just didn't see in like any of the other comic strips. Everything else was like
like a circular panel, and you're like, what? You can do that? It's, because we were all used to the kind of template that Schultz had kind of innovated, and then everybody kind of just did that thing forever. Yeah, that's crazy. Those were amazing pages, man. And also just I think we could all agree too, at that era in time, not to knock too many cartoonists from that era, but there was like a lack of quality to the art, like consideration or skill, and not all of it, but in general, like I do remember just the level of cartooning he'd bring being really unique as well, because he's just like, he would draw a kid, and it's not like the bad template Sunday comic, like yeah.
I'm gonna not talk anymore about Watterson just because.
We probably move on for a while.
Why can't you talk about Watterson?
Because we'll just keep, this will be a Watterson episode.
we should do a Watterson episode. That'd be a good episode. Jason, tell me about this one.
Well, that's Bill Sienkiewicz from
from
New Mutants 20. That again, that's another one of those pages that was just like, wow. The colors, Glennis Wayne, I think that's her last name, really kind of helped give the sky and stuff a bit of depth. But even without the colors, it's fantastic. Unfortunately, Claremont is a wordy bastard, and that's sort of a travesty of what happened there. But I like the grid in the top left corner.
Yeah.
And it progresses through the story, and the bigger the evil influence, the black, it starts expanding into different areas, and just that it ticked a box, something in me that really dug the way that was like another storytelling, weird sort of storytelling device to push the idea of like the evil taking over. That was really cool. But also just just the lines, and like I know that the lettering is kind of a Stedman rip off, but it all just works. There's just something about it that just it's all just working for me.
Yeah. And
so Full Tilt, there's a 2-page spread right at the beginning that actually this is very inspirational towards what I did in the very, very first 2 pages of Full Tilt.
Nice.
I mean, it doesn't have a giant demon bear, but it's a landscapey thing, and very minimal sky, clouds like that. Yeah, it's so this was a big one for me. That whole book, like his run, Sienkiewicz's run in that, was just eye-opening as well. It's another one of those like, oh, you can do that in comics.
I remember first discovering Sienkiewicz's stuff and just loving it, and I for some reason I just remember a lot of people didn't, and like oh, this is so cool, and they're like, I don't get it, but man, I've always loved his stuff, both his paintings and his line art.
Yeah, I think the problem is that it was not like what they were used to. So
right,
it was easy for people that have been reading comics for 10, 20 years, whatever, to not get it and not like it because it was so different.
Yeah, I can't remember what the name of that is, but there's actually like a psychological principle where people are not willing to accept that which goes a little bit too far outside of what they expect.
Yeah.
So everybody claims to want like new things, and we actually are driven by novelty. But then there's this opposing kind of psychological force that is also making us so that we don't want things to be too different. So like when the iPhone came out, right? They had to use skeuomorphic design because it was so different that people wouldn't know what to do and they would have rejected it. And so the Note app, it looks like a yellow legal pad with pages ripped it off, right? The YouTube app looked like a 1950s television. Like everything that they did so that they're like, I know that this is like totally groundbreaking and new, but we're going to relate it to things that you understand so that it's not rejected. And so I think oftentimes we lose out on really innovative things because, it's like, it's different and it's new and I don't like it. Kill it. Don't change things. I like things the way that I like them. And it's just, I don't know.
No, that you're actually citing one of my main reasons for thinking most rock and roll nowadays is dead, because I have no music currently that I've heard that I'm like, I'm afraid my son's going to listen to this. Like there's nothing like that out there. And I'm like, what is rock and roll doing? I'm a dad. I should be freaked out for my son's well-being because the new band is so dangerous and loud and different. And there's nothing like that. It's like,
Taylor Swift isn't scaring you.
I guess that's a fair point. Maybe it just goes so corporate now that I'm like, no, don't be
I'm just terrified by the bland monopolies.
But I feel like it should be dangerous, It's like the new stuff should be a little dangerous and weird,
Yeah, the dangerous doesn't get past the digital gatekeepers.
Yeah.
Okay, I've got a couple right in a row. This one might be cheating too, but I think we all might agree. You ready for this one?
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna go full screen before I reveal.
Wait, Corey, is it God? Because that's the ultimate cheat. You're like, he's God. He designed everything, you guys. He's a pretty good artist. That
is true. That is true. This is an original storyboard from He-Man.
Nice.
And this is like back when people would animate stuff. I mean, and to think about like the comparison of what was going on in like weekly Saturday morning cartoons versus like Disney, there'd be like 20 or 30 people that would make a cartoon a week. And then there's like 300 people for Disney that would make a cartoon every like 4 years or something. And, but they still have like motion and weight and like thought behind like the actions, and they're using like the animation principles. And like this is a joke where he's like looking for something, but he pulls, I love this note, pulls out a weird fruit, and he's like, no, that was lunch, and he puts back. Anyway, like I just love that no one would ever see this, and yet they put like a ton of care into it. Because I've looked at a lot of storyboards, and quite a few of them are just like quick, kind of nasty, whatever. But like there's some real like care put into like the backgrounds and like the elements that are kind of going on and the rule of thirds that's happening. And anyway, and I kind of like that 4:3 is coming back as an aspect ratio as well. Okay, so that's one. Then so this will be my original segment. I don't think my camera is set up for this, but here's a Sean Gordon Murphy.
Yeah.
That I've got. I could not afford this today. My secret with collecting is I try to grab stuff before people become so expensive that I can't afford them anymore.
Do you have any of Jason's early stuff?
Actually, that was the next.
Oh, okay. Well,
the next thing that I was going to do is I bought.
Thanks, Chase. There's somebody in the. Oh, that's shit. Who the fuck drew that?
No way, man. This thing rocks. I love this.
Yeah, actually, that's not bad.
No, it's great. I love it. It's got. I gotta turn it a little bit. I have like no room, but what I really like about this is I really like. Again, like Art Adams, like there's different techniques and different ink work based on the different surfaces. And then one of my favorite things that happens in a lot of like ink stuff, you're doing really well here, where you're defining kind of like highlight and shadow, and you put that alternating, you go light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, and that gives it like a lot of depth. Anyway, I love this piece. There's a ton of really good stuff going on with this. And I can't move it to the top. Hold on, I got to turn it around.
Well, I appreciate you bringing that out.
Yeah, man. This is good. And I got it before you were famous, so I could actually afford it.
I'm still not famous. I don't know. I don't know what world you're living in, but no one knows who the hell I am.
No, I'm just saying, I think you will be. I think at some point in time, my goal is at some point in time, I can't afford Jason Copland art. That's ultimately would be awesome.
That would be awesome, but I don't think that's gonna. There's no fear.
Okay, I think I can show it up here a little bit better on this camera. Gosh dang it, I've got too much stuff in the studio.
I'm loving every time you put that down. There's like this weird like boom.
So there's some originals. I got since I'm doing originals. Hold on, I'll show you more.
Nice. I can grab an original from my wall too to show.
I'm going to show an original.
Okay, this one I really like. I don't know how well I'm going to be able to do it. This is Ryan Otley from Invincible. I think he's currently doing Spider-Man. But what I love about this, I've got two of his pencil ones, is he draws one axis when he's doing perspective. He draws one axis in red pencil and one axis in blue pencil. And this is the type of stuff that you can't see without an artist edition or without the actual art, because none of this comes through.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Nice.
Yeah.
And Ryan's such a nice guy too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. He might be the nicest guy in comics. I've heard people that are not nice people like say, I love that guy. He's so nice.
All right. I want to show. I got. Oh, that's not gonna. So.
Oh, nice.
Jesse Lonergan.
Oh, that's rad.
That's great.
Yeah, that's lone chick. No, lone bird and chick. And I don't know if it'll come through, but there's like actual zip. That gray is zip.
Oh, nice. Cool.
Nice.
So there's like zip in it, and yeah, it's the little details in the lapel and stuff. Oh, it's fucking awesome.
Show that lapel closer. Oh,
that's amazing.
That's great.
Yeah, it's not my camera sucks, but yeah. Yeah, I freaking love this. My wife got it for me for Christmas 2 years ago now.
I love it.
Yeah, I love it. It's so good.
So I've got
Justin's work is fantastic, by the way.
Kevin Huizenga, Glenn Ganges, and curses and stuff like that, drawn in quarterly. I love the pacing of this page where it's a guy, he's kind of sitting. It's all hand lettered, and I like the kind of old school cartooning flow of it. So, yeah.
Nice.
It's one of my favorites.
Cool. Yeah, that's awesome. That's a thick frame, man.
Yeah.
Let's see. So Chase is saying that he pledged to the campaign for a hardcover.
Nice.
Thank you so much, Chase.
Hell yeah, Chase.
So if you guys are coming in the middle of this and you haven't, you're not sure what we're talking about.
We haven't plugged the book lately.
What's that?
I said we just haven't plugged the book lately.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So
actually mentioning where people should go and stuff at this point, if somebody's just tuning in, maybe we should do that.
Yeah.
Oh,
so yeah. If you want to check out Jason's stuff, we're talking about artistic influences tonight. But if you want to check out Jason's stuff, he has a phenomenal book called Full Tilt, and it's on Zoop. And in the description of this video is a link, but you can also just search Jason Copland Zoop, Zoop, and that'll come up. And it is ending soon. Crowdfunding campaign that's ending soon. So check that out because the artwork in it is incredible. I don't have it pulled up right now, but if you want to see a spread that goes on for 20 plus pages, which we were talking about earlier in the thing, and
Yeah.
it's really good. So I'm excited to get my copy.
And what's the page count on that, Jason? Just
308 stored pages.
holy
Wow.
crap.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, and I've been meaning to count how many actual 2-page spreads are in it, because in my last newsletter, well, second to last newsletter, I had a competition and people put in guesses, and then I'm scatterbrainish kind of, and so I forgot to actually count them. So, but I'd actually be super interested to find out just how many 2-page spreads are in there. Well, we know there's at least 11 because
Right.
the 20
Yeah.
page spread. But the book opens with 2 double-page spreads, so there's it's one of those ones that just it's the gift that keeps on giving. So it's one of those things where I really hope it's a little too late, but we'll see what happens. But getting a lay flat binding for the book was like the very last stretch goal. Unfortunately, we'll probably not make it, but I want it. So I might just swallow the cost and not make any money, but at least
What are
put out
you
really
what are you
like.
trying to get to that stretch goal? Like
50,000.
50. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't see it happening, because that's like 6.5K in a day, which that's just not going to happen at the end here. But
It might. I mean, usually they say that it's like like an inverted bell curve, like a bathtub. Like you get a ton at the beginning and a ton at the end.
yeah, I don't know, because on Zoop, the Kickstarter has kind of a more internal shopping network. They can kind of push the book to all the people that go onto that platform, and even if they're only interested in or there for looking at games or whatever,
Right.
not necessarily comics, but they push it pretty much to everyone, just saying, oh, it's going to end soon, and all those eyeballs get on it. So I think that's the one downside. If I was to say there is a downside to going with Zoop, is just that it doesn't quite yet have that mass amount of people that are on it. Their time's coming. I think it's a great platform, and the guys are great. And I don't plan on going anywhere else. As long as they'll have me, I'll go to Zoop. But I think that for me right now, just that last wave just isn't quite as big as I had hoped. So, but whatever. I can't complain, and I'm not really complaining, I swear, because where I'm at is fantastic, and I appreciate, like I said, I appreciate everyone backing it and supporting it.
Yeah, I mean, you've got close to 600 backers, which is very impressive.
Yeah. I didn't think that I'd get over 200. So yeah, I'm pretty excited that it's going to be shared with so many people.
Yeah. Chase also followed up with a question. Over the course of 5 years that you took to make the book, how differently did the approach to making the art change towards the last year of development compared to when you began creating the first initial pages, in terms of time management and getting individual pages finished at a certain rate?
Well, the beauty thing about this book is that it was never going to be pitched anywhere. It was always going to be my own book that I was just going to crowdfund. So I could go at any rate that I wanted to. I never really had to worry about hitting any sort of deadline. So the pages sort of got finished as they got finished. I might have spent a little too much time on some of them just because I didn't want to drop the ball at a certain point. They had to be right. But at the same time, it's weird. I don't know if it changed that much over the 5 years, my approach to it. I think I'd saved the flashback stuff, the kind of bookend stuff, for right at the end. So they have a bit of a different feel, but I also drew them so that they would have a different feel because they're not part of the current narrative. They're the flashback. So it was sort of a way to make sure that they were differentiated from the other stuff, that they had a sense of distance from, what was currently happening. But I saved those to the end because I honestly didn't really, in my brain, I couldn't figure out how I should handle the flashback pages. So once I got to the end, I did take a slightly different approach to it, but that's only because I wanted to make sure that they were different from the other pages. Yeah. So really, a great question, but I actually don't think it changed it at all. I was pretty steady, I guess. Yeah,
that's cool. Are you still doing? I had you on Illa Talk quite a few years ago, and you blocked out a Judge Dredd page on the show. Are you still doing kind of the blocking pencils digitally and then inks traditionally, or has that changed?
Yeah, so I do all my roughs on my Cintiq. So I do it all digitally, and they're pretty rough. Some people would probably be hard pressed to know exactly what it was that I was drawing. Sometimes they're pretty rough, and then I print those out, and then in pencil I'll if I need if I need help, kind of going, what the hell is this? I'll pencil faces and hands. I'll tighten those up just to make sure that they usually I judge a page is how successful I made the hands and faces. So I'll usually tighten those up in pencil, but I don't belabor it. I try not to be a slave to the pencils. So it's more about the inking, drawing in an ink as immediate as possible, and not really worrying about following a pencil line. And I use a ton of whiteout. I'm very open with the fact that I will white out stuff many, many times before I decide that it works. So, but traditionally I can't imagine not drawing on paper. That's just that's where I am.
Yeah. And then you have the artwork that you can sell. And you're giving some of the artwork is available. I think that's what the level that I backed at. There was some original pages available that you get to choose.
Yeah.
So I'll talk people through that in case there's any collectors out there. So I backed at a tier where I get an original page in the book, and somebody from Zoop contacted me and said, "Hey, pick what you want." And so there was just a bunch of kind of smaller images of these pages, and I don't know if I should say this, but I picked one and then I changed my mind and I emailed them back and I was like, "Wait, can I have this other one?" So they didn't mind. Anyway, so if you're looking for original art from the book, then you can back at that level.
Like you were talking about getting pages at an affordable price. I don't think I'm going to sell pages after this. I think they're going to be mine, all mine. And so this is really the only opportunity people are going to have a chance to own any of this work. And I'm really proud of this stuff. This is the best work that I've ever done. And even Chris Somney today stated that, which is pretty fantastic. So yeah, this is like the last kick of the can for people if they want affordable art from me, because I don't plan on selling it. If I do sell it, the prices will go way up. So
they're very reasonable.
Yeah,
especially because you're also getting like a book. It's like a big book. So I thought they're very reasonable prices. So there's two tiers. You've got the one single page tier, and then you've got the double page spread tier where you can get a spread.
Yeah, and like you said, if you back at that level, the Zoop people will send you a file full of pages that are kind of spoilery, and we didn't put on the actual Zoop page because I kind of want to keep as much of the story hidden as possible, which is I've been really cagey about telling people what the story is, because there's stuff in it that I haven't told anybody about, and I don't want it to get out till people are reading it. So there's pages that are kind of behind a firewall paywall that if you back it, they'll send you the folder and you'll be able to see tons more stuff. It's not just what's on the site. There's a bunch of stuff available. Just didn't want to show it because it actually hints at all the stuff that happens later on.
Yeah. I think I saw Nick Patera mention to you that was that who it was? I'm pretty sure it was Nick. He was saying people will forget by the time they get the book. Because you were kind of debating online of how to kind of do the original art and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I think the way that you're doing this, like if I wanted to go in and download every page and try to piece it together and whatever, maybe.
No, it was more. Yeah, it was more like there's stuff that happens to a character.
Yeah.
That happens all in one image. That if you knew that, it might change how you or how you read it. Like you already expecting something to happen because you saw the page. I'd rather people not know. The main character, Massimo Miller, goes through with the fucking shit. So I want people to kind of experience that along with him. I don't really want people to know all the stuff that he goes through before they read it. But that's just me. I'm one of these people that I don't watch trailers to films that I want to see or shows that I want to see because I'd rather not know anything about it.
Yeah.
Even small things, like if I know I'm going to go see it, well, why would I watch something that tells me about it? I don't quite get it. I mean, that's great if people like that stuff, that's fine. But for me, I'd rather not know anything and go in and be surprised than know tons of stuff and be like, oh yeah, I saw that already. Oh yeah, okay. I don't know. It's a different experience, and I'd rather have the one where I'm just discovering it all brand new.
Yeah. That's cool that you're keeping that available for people who prefer it that way, It's funny, my wife and I are polar opposites with that, where she's one of those people who, like, even before her birthday, she's cool. She wants to know what she's going to get. Whereas I'm the person who I'm like, I want to, don't tell me. Like, I will open it and experience the joy of opening a present. It's the kind of same thing with, like, movies, too, where she can have somebody just walk her through point by point and still enjoy the movie. Yeah. For me, I can't, I have to have some suspense,
Yeah. I feel the same way.
Yeah. But that's funny. It's interesting. Each person has like a different way of digesting that. And it's cool that you're doing that for the people who don't want spoilers. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you guys do want spoilers, get original pages.
There
right?
you go.
And order some on
and then
Zoop
cancel.
Right now.
And then cancel.
No, do not cancel.
Yeah.
No, as somebody who owns an original page of Jason's, it's worth getting it. I'll pitch that pretty hard. I think if you're a fan of comic books, then original pages make a lot of sense. But even more so, if you are an artist, getting original pages is one of the best ways to kind of reverse engineer like what makes something work and how they're putting it together. Because once you get the finished, polished, colored, digitally printed situation, it is a lot of like the bones of what made that page work are missing, or how it kind of came about. It's more difficult to see something that is reduced in size and washed over with a bunch of color and stuff than it is to see the actual paper. And so if you are interested in kind of upping your game and you've got a little bit of extra money, that is money well spent on original pages. And it sounds like this is, if not the only opportunity, possibly the best deal on an opportunity. If you're selling them later, it sounds like right.
I haven't closed the door on selling them later on, but I got to tell you, they were really only on the Zoop campaign so that I would hit my 10,000 goal. Because I figured, well, I'll need all the help I can get, and then I made it past that in the first hour, and then I was like, oh, I should take them all off there because I really love them. They're great. I love them. They're my little babies, and I'm kind of happy if they just stay on my shelf.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if someone buys it and a page or 2-page spread that they really, really love, then I'm okay with that too. But
Yeah.
But I have been thinking about, I won't now because there's only 26 hours left. But I was seriously thinking of like pulling them all off, like just saying, okay, whoever got what they got it, and then that was it.
Yeah.
Because
even more of a sense of urgency. You better do it right now,
Yeah.
because maybe not even wait until the end. You never know if Jason changes his mind, so do it now.
Yeah.
Well, and I relate to that because, like, when you finished a big work and you have the whole thing too on your of your own original art, there is like a kind of desire to kind of keep them around, like. So I definitely relate to that.
Yeah, I was contemplating selling the 22-page spread as one big like people would have to buy, or somebody could buy. Not they didn't have to buy, but somebody could buy all 22 pages and then put it on their wall or whatever they want to do with it. But I thought, oh, that would be fantastic. And then I thought, fuck no, I want to keep it.
Yeah.
I'm not giving it to nobody for nothing. Forget about it. So,
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. That's awesome. Okay. Well, should we do one more quick one? I've got one queued up.
All right.
This is a Gary Gianni original.
Oh, nice.
So this came from his Kickstarter, Into the Silent Sea, which is written by Mignola and then penciled and inked by Gary Gianni. Anyway, he does incredible ink work. He did Prince Valiant in the Sunday papers for a long time, and anyway, the work is just incredible. But then I got the kind of artist edition, and the artist edition is phenomenal because they actually go in and he's my kind of guy when it comes to like reference, because he's like, okay, so this is going to take place on a ship. And so he like found like one of those miniature shipbuilder clubs, I guess. There's like clubs of people that get together, and he started reaching out to this community and saying like, hey, does anybody have this specific ship as a model? And they're like, yeah. And so they packaged it up and shipped it to him. So like they sent him this giant, like 3 or 4 feet long model ship. And so all of the pictures of the ship were actually based on him sitting next to like a huge wooden miniature of the ship itself, and taking pictures of with his phone and like looking around. And so it is a very like proportionate and realistically drawn thing. I just like reference a lot. I like to tear down the idea that artists somehow magically have memorized what everything on the planet looks like and can just draw without looking at anything. So anyway, that's a big influence there. A more recent one, but
nice.
That's the beauty for me drawing stuff in the future, is I can get away with anything. Yeah. For a while, I was doing a lot of insects because most people don't actually know what insects look like, and so if you've got an exoskeleton and ball socket joints, people will forgive a lot. Yeah.
It's half of why we all like enjoy drawing like a skeleton or a zombie. It's like you can have a little leeway with the anatomy. It's pretty fun.
Yeah,
that is true.
my favorite thing to do with skeletons that other people have drawn is try to figure out look at how they did the hands, because without skin, muscles, and tendons, there's no way that this just weird bag of tiny little bones would like stay together or move correctly. And so to watch people like try to figure out like, because there's
no
fair
point
palm.
Without all the cartilage. Yeah, like what is holding that hand? That is hilarious.
Yeah, and so whenever you look at a skeleton's hands, there's some people that like they put like a big palm bone in here. It's like that doesn't exist. That's not a real thing. And then other people are like, I don't know, we'll try to group it, or they like just put less detail in there to try to make it feel like it's more together. Anyway, I really enjoy looking at like skeletal hands just to like see how you solve that problem. Because if you draw every single bone, it just looks like these giant, weird, long fingers coming right out of the radius and the ulna. Anyway, so
I love this.
yeah, just a weird thing. Anyway, but yeah. Let me see. Have we shown all of the ones that you gave us, Jason? I'm trying to think.
Well, some of them didn't work. Yeah, that's Sienkiewicz again.
Yeah. That's awesome.
That's beautiful. I love the ink splatter too.
Yeah.
It's like perfectly laid out ink splatter there too.
Yeah, that's cool.
Oh, and the contrast. That has like almost a perfect balance. It's like an almost perfect figure foreground flip.
Yeah.
With the negative shapes and the positive. Wow, that's cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think a lot of people don't understand is when the foreground becomes lighter, you have to figure out a way for the background to become darker. And when the foreground becomes darker, you have to figure out a way for the background to become lighter. Like the background serves as a way to add value contrast to the foreground. And so like, I love it when stuff like this happens because I'm pointing as if anybody can see where I'm pointing, but like he's mostly in shadow in between the gap. And then as soon as the hood comes in and adds a lot of white, you've got the shadow of the building. And as soon as you hit his boots, which add a lot of lighter value, you get the shadow of the other building. And so I love that kind of trick. Not that it's really a trick, but that kind of control of value of where things stand out because what's going on in the background. And it doesn't even make sense in a lot of times, like from a perspective standpoint or from a, whatever. It's like the composition is more important than like the reality of it. Hey, Gary backed as well. Thanks, Gary.
Oh, thanks, Gary. Appreciate that.
Nice.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's a cat in the window.
So there is.
Oh, that's rad.
I really like the lamppost. I like the that needs to be there. If that wasn't there, it would be a far weaker piece.
Yeah.
You're right. It's kind of tethering the piece and it's giving it a third object.
Mm-hmm.
That's really cool.
Third vertical. Well, and then you've got the like repetition of that really interesting kind of angular shape in the lower right of the building with that drain as well.
Nice.
Yeah.
Which helps lead into that lamp because you go with like big blocky vertical to smaller vertical to even thinner vertical.
It's it's like most compositions, you got that circular sort of, motion.
Right.
You follow the body to the feet down across the wires, back to the building, up the building to the figure. There's a circular.
Well, yeah. And you follow those wires and the window with the cat in it even is an arrow that points up.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, go this way now, look up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that whole shadow flows into his arm, which leads you back over. Yeah, I love the circular nature of the
flow. It's pretty rad.
Nice. That's cool. And even the spray is going horizontally as well, which helps to lead you along those lines.
And it gives it energy too, right? The way the splatter goes.
Mm-hmm. I like that he tilted it too, because it's like it. If you just move the figure's legs down just like a little bit, and just have them kind of more horizontal, it would just be such a like less dynamic. But that slight angle of the building and the viewpoint really brings a lot of energy to it too, which is a big thing I'm a fan of in comics. Is like, if you're doing something that's like could be like our tendency when we draw is just to keep it straight horizontal,
right?
And if you just tilt the viewpoint just a little bit, it brings so much movement to your piece. That's awesome. Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Well, I'm ignoring the chat now. Let me see what's going on here. Back to the hardcover. Oh, yeah. Gary says likewise.
That's some
the
beautifully drawn laundry too. It's like I love the real just like loose line work on the laundry.
Yeah, right.
Well, he's got such nice line work,
Yeah,
that's one of the things that I always liked about it. Like even in that New Mutants one, the line is just so alive. His line is always alive. There's never really a dead line.
Yeah,
which is something that I really I feel that a lot of, well, I won't say a lot, but a lot of inkers, that's the slave to the pencil thing, right? They want to draw exactly what that pencil is, and the life of the line suffers, I think, because they're too busy trying to make it something like that ink line is something else. They're not just letting the drawing happen in ink. They're trying to ink the pencil line, and that's two different things.
Yeah. I have a book that I got at a used bookstore. The title is Rubbed Off. I can't. Oh, Dana Gibson. Let me pull this up. But it kind of reminds me, especially in that cavern there. Like, I don't know. I know that a monthly comic schedule makes things pretty difficult when it comes to like doing your penciling in your own inks, but like there is some real value into doing your own inks, because like I just love, like, if you look at like the shadow under the chair and stuff, like he does hatching, but then he also just kind of scribbles, and like a modern like big 2 production inker would be a little scared to just like scribble. You don't see a lot of that, because a lot of that is kind of left to like the colorist.
Yeah, well, I think that one of the problems with like the house style, or even just dividing the labor between a penciler and an inker, is that there's no real singular vision.
Yeah,
right.
And I think that that's what's lacking in a lot of comics. They're really well drawn, but they're all the same. There's no singular voice coming through.
Yeah. I think that's what's great about indie comics in general, is like, I like one of the things that I love is like, I feel like there's so much value to a cartoonist's full vision,
Yeah.
There's a million people who can draw. Possibly you can make the argument better than Art Spiegelman, but it's like there's one mouse, and like it's just the author's complete vision,
Yeah.
And that's a cool thing to see and read. And like I would say too, when you're working on your own work and you don't have to rely on too many people on a team for it, that it's just a different result, a much more intentional result, right? Where you can work the way you kind of intended, whereas like you hear all these horror stories about, a penciler who sent something off to an inker and, it just didn't come out like they wanted,
Yeah.
And then there's other stories, the reverse, where, people who've worked in collaborative teams are like, oh my gosh, it was so much better than I would have inked it, So I don't know,
But I think that might be, some people might think along those lines, because they've got what I have is imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Right.
Where they don't really like their own work, or don't feel like their own work has as much value as somebody else's work, when that's just not necessarily true.
Yeah.
But I think
there are people that draw better than me though.
But the thing is, like, I think the thing that's great about it is like that's kind of half the fun of it though. It's like, like,
oh, that's a nice page. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. That left one. Holy.
That is a beautiful page.
Yeah. I mean, there's plenty of really amazing ones, but that just was like boom.
Yeah. Sergio Tappi is this one.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's great
cool
stuff.
I love again, that epic juxtaposition of like a lot of black.
Yeah.
A lot of balance to the page.
What I love about Sergio Tappi is like the way that he textures stuff doesn't make any sense. It's like it's kind of random short lines. They're obviously not random, but they feel totally just chaotic. But like it works on a greater whole. Anyway, just the shape of things. Like he'll just go in, and you get like the pattern on that chair or chaise lounge or whatever that is.
Yeah,
it just feels like totally random lines. There's like so much energy in like the line work that he does.
It's cool. He seems like really focused on kind of building form too with
Yeah.
that, you know.
Yeah.
Where it's interesting. A lot of people go for like a texture, but he's doing texture and form.
Yep.
It's kind of cool, you know. Creates like this plane. Yeah, I think like to me, it's you know, like part of why, like, you know, I think Scott brought up Calvin and Hobbes, and we were all kind of, you know, just thinking like, oh, how great Watterson was, right? But I think part of why Watterson is so great is, I mean, everything about Calvin and Hobbes was Watterson.
Yeah.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
and so Jason, that's kind of what you're talking about. And I think that's, I mean, I don't want to like hawk your book too much, but it's like, I think that's what's exciting about what you're doing right now is like, this is a book that's like your full vision, you know,
Yeah.
which is really cool. And that's like something that's going to be different on the shelf, like from, you know, other work where you've collaborated and stuff like that. But this is like your whole thing. And of course, those are going to be your best pages, you know, like, yeah.
I agree.
Good.
But yeah,
All right.
like I'd like to see more of that in the mainstream, but in the interim, like when the mainstream isn't doing that, you know, we got to support the indie stuff that is, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So anyway, we got a couple of people to back, but if you haven't taken a look, go take a look. And if you look at a bunch of Jason's stuff on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and whatever else, you can see like the quality of the work that's being put out. I'm excited to read it. I'm excited to read it too. So that's going to be.
I appreciate that. Yeah.
Pretty good. What's your fulfillment schedule look like? Do you know?
No. So Troy is lettering started lettering it. It's a little behind schedule. Just because he got a bunch of stuff thrown at him.
But the artwork is totally done.
Oh yeah, the artwork's done. So I've got the remarked sketches I have to do. There's 50 of those. So what's going to happen is that this is what I've been told by Zoop is that the signature, all the signatures and all the remarked work, they're going to get those pages printed, and then they're going to send those pages to me. I'm going to draw and sign on those, ship them back, and then they get bound into the book. So everyone will get their drawing or their signature bound into the book. So however long it takes them to print those, for them to ship to me, I guess that would be overnight, I hope. Then I do all the drawings and then I ship them back. And so, and because they're taking care of the printing, I have no idea. I haven't talked to the printer. So I don't know what the turnaround is for that. I would like to think that these will be in people's hands, hopefully before November.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully October. But again, I'm not 100% sure. But I hope that's I don't want them to come by November. I definitely want them to be there by October. I'm not just sure what the timeline is for that though.
Yeah. But the good thing is that I've backed a few crowdfunding things. I have kind of a newish rule that unless it's like somebody who, you know, has been in the industry delivering on time forever, I want the artwork to be done. And so everybody, you know, this is gonna get fulfilled. And it's not one of those things that you have to worry about because it's like the artwork is finished. I think that's one of the biggest things in crowdfunding is, you know, you want it to be well underway, if not like totally done. So
yeah, that was my one of my goals is that I wouldn't crowdfund. It was like a rule. I wasn't going to crowdfund until the artwork was finished.
Nice.
Yeah.
So the artwork was done before the Zoop thing even launched. It's just now waiting on other factors, as publishing usually does. But there should be absolutely zero fear that people are going to think that they're never going to get their book because they definitely will get a book.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, cool. Well, that's awesome. Anything you want to say here before we wrap?
Not really. Just that I really appreciate getting to talk to you guys again.
Yeah.
And a good way to bookend this whole adventure.
I forgot we were going to
the
claim
podcast.
We're going to claim the bookends.
The podcast campaign started with you guys, and it's ending with you guys. So that's pretty awesome.
I love it. Well, we appreciate having you on, and it's always fun and inspiring to talk about influences and stuff. And I mean, in reality, like, we're all influenced by so many different artists and stuff that we could probably just sit here and riff on favorite cartoonists for 10 years. So
I brought over a pile of books just in case I was like, oh, how about this one? How about
nice.
that one?
Yeah. I'm I didn't even get into Chris Pacello, Death the High Cost of Living, the Sam Keith run of Sandman, there's just so much stuff, so that's it's fun. Thank you for sharing with us,
my
your influences
pleasure.
and stuff. That was fun.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, if you want to check out Jason's stuff, his links are in the description of this video. And you can go to jasoncopland.com and that'll take you to his website. But more importantly than that, get into that link, that Zoop campaign, ZOOP, soon, because it is ending tomorrow at midnight. If you're watching this today, it's ending tomorrow at midnight. If you're watching this tomorrow, it's ending tonight.
Thursday. Yeah. Oh, that doesn't even really help. Does it saying the day? Because Thursday might be a Friday somewhere else.
Just hit the link in the description, and if it's still
someone
active,
in Australia is like, "What are you talking about? It's already done." No, I'm just kidding. I don't know what the time difference is in.
It's pretty close. Yeah. My buddy lives in Brisbane, and I think right now it's like 12 o'clock in the afternoon or something. So.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Oh man, I was just watching Ted Lasso, and there's a joke in there where they're like, "Man, I wish there was just one time zone in the whole world. Why don't we do that?" And somebody was like, "The sun." Well, that's good stuff. Cool. Josh, where can we find your stuff?
Well, you can find me at Joshua Kemble on YouTube, where I do a lot of live streams while I'm working on a crazy Victorian graphic novel called Not Death But Love for Turner Publishing, about the Brownings, the Elizabeth Barrett and Robert Browning. And then also you can find my books Jacob's Apartment and Two Stories on bookstores everywhere. And like I said, support Jason's book, because the better this does, the more of his own solo creator owned stuff you're gonna see. And if you want to see more of that from cartoonists, you got to back it. You got to support it. Give them a reason. Because it's fun to see Jason do Hellboy or known properties and stuff like that. But how much cooler, in my opinion, is it to have him doing his own characters, his own IP and stuff? To me, that's what I want to see from cartoonists. I know our audience does too. So support that stuff with your money, man.
Yeah, I agree. If you've ever complained about everything being the same, and then in the next breath you don't go back indie stuff, then watch out there. You can find my stuff at CoreyKerr.com, CorYKERR.com. I've got t-shirts, mugs, flags, all kinds of different things that are basically talking about the interplay and kind of interdependencies between the individual liberties and living together as a society, and kind of the weird nuanced balance of how that works with governments and tech and all that kind of stuff, mixed with kind of ancient symbolism of heraldry and old iconic religious things and occult stuff and things like that with modern problems. So you can check that out at CoreyKerr.com. And Scott, where can we find your stuff, and how do we know when and where to do this whole Artcasters thing?
Okay, yeah, you can find my stuff at my website, circworks.com. There's a little thing under my name there. That's where you find it. Digital tools for making comics, my own comics, including Young and the Dead, Kids vs. Zombie Adventure Story, like Goonies meets Night of the Living Dead. And then I've got a YouTube channel, which again I will be returning to on the 20th of this month with some really cool, all new, all different content, which I'm really happy with. So Definitely check that out. And as far as the show, the Artcasters, we do this show every single week. We usually do it on Thursday. Today's on a Wednesday. So that's a good reason to join our mailing list, because you might not know exactly what day it is. If you were like, if you tune in on Thursday, you missed it. So, so if you want to know exactly what day we're going to be on, who the guest is going to be on, and also whose channel is going to be on, because it's sometimes it's on Josh's channel, sometimes it's on Corey's channel. In the past, it was on my channel, so it's really, it can be confusing. But just to get rid of all that confusion, just join the mailing list. We don't spam you or anything. We just send out a newsletter usually about a half hour before we go live at least, and then that'll show you exactly where to go. You just click on that link, and that's the easiest way to do it, because YouTube doesn't always notify you. So
cool.
Nice.
All right, guys, we'll catch you next week.